Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to look at HO scale freemo moduling in the last 12 months that what we've been working on with our modules. This photo was taken October 2023 at the Great Scale Train Show in Timonium, Maryland, where we set up with the Capital Area Freemo group. We've been involved with that group since 2007, even though we're from South Jersey. That's another story for another time. And in the foreground, you can see our modules. We stretch from that blue building to the end, right in the foreground, and then the peninsula that sticks off that. And then we have a small curve module just past the blue and gray building. Going to just do a walkthrough with a video showing this setup. This is a 2-day show, a Saturday and Sunday, and here we are Friday night just setting up. So this is our peninsula module off of what we call, it's all part of Cheesesteak 1 is what we call it. It's a corn syrup industrial plant. In the foreground there, this is a trash transfer or C&D, construction and demolition debris transfer to railroad cars. Most of these prototypes are based on some roughly based on structures down in the South Philly port area along the Delaware River. That's actually a section of the Walt Whitman, an approach section to the Walt Whitman Bridge, which crosses the Delaware River in Philadelphia. That's actually fairly scale and prototypical for that area. It's an under construction. It's not a finished structure. None of our structures on this module are finished yet. There's a lot of structures that are missing, a lot of scenery that's missing. So it's a work in progress will be for a number of years. That's a cold storage, refrigerated warehouse in the background, and in the foreground is a transload facility. Now we're moving on to Cheesesteak 1, which is very unfinished. There's a unfinished city street with a grade crossing. The brown section there, it will eventually be some sort of Skid Row type, abandoned houses or seedy strip joints and bars and what have you, chop shops, who knows. But that's, again, everything's a work in progress here. Nothing's finished. It won't be finished for probably 5-6 years. Now we're moving on, and there's way too much grass for South Philadelphia too, so a lot of that's going to kind of be buried under trash and structures and other things. So this is Cheesesteak 2, which is a 2x6 module. This was our second module we built. We have a corrugated paper warehouse in the foreground, which is the blue building, and in the background there's a gray building, which is a metal fabrication company. Again, there'll be a lot more added to these structures. The doors actually on the corrugated warehouse operate, their roll-up doors operate, they're electric. So that's a pretty cool thing that I'll talk about probably in a separate video. The corrugated warehouse is actually a paper structure. So I'm kind of doing an overview of the rest of the group here. You can see everybody's kind of putting things together. It's not assembled completely yet. Everybody just brings their own module. It's an open invitation to anybody with a freemo module. We don't have any membership or anything. So this is a module that's Mathis Creek by Clarence Gunther. This is Larry's Farm by Clarence Gunther. And then this is our third module, which is a curve module that's going to be a lumber facility, a small loading spur for a lumber company. And that was our fourth module, and I believe it was brand new for this show. We brought a curve modules because we were adding so much linear feet to the group that we felt that it was kind of our duty to build something that added a little radius to help with the planning. The poor guy that does the design for the whole layout was probably scratching his head a lot every time we added another straight module. So you're looking at kind of the spaghetti. A lot of this has since been cleaned up, but it was kind of a little rough, the wiring at the time, but you can see what's involved. You're also going to see the pink foam, and that's a controversial thing in the freemo community. I've used it on almost every module that I built, and I've never had any issues with it, and I love it, and it keeps the modules light. So that's actually an end piece just to keep the trains from falling on the floor. Digitrax is the standard in freemo, so you see the Digitrax plates. All the switch machines have to be flush. So here's some still pictures. This shows that Walt Whitman bridge approach, scratch-built structure entirely. Again, not completed. The piers were 3D printed. Most of the structure there's some 3D printed railings, but most of the structure is laser cut parts. Paper warehouse or corrugated warehouse with operating roll-up doors. This is the door controllers. Made the circuit up, 3D printed the housing for the switch box, and laser cut the plate. It's a removable plug that we can just unplug it from the module between shows, and then I think my son just has it screwed into the side there. I was at the show. I was making up plywood bundles for the lumberyard. You can find these online and print them out and wrap little blocks of wood. Kept me occupied for the show. These are some lights for the Walt Whitman Bridge. The bridge has highway directional lights that can be adjusted for the rush hour traffic, and they have a movable barrier in the center. So they change the lane directions. These are scratch built, laser cut, some Plastistruct clear tinted plastic in green and red. So now you see the Jimmy switching the layout. We're going past the refrigerated warehouse and the transload facility. And I think he's going to be switching the corrugated warehouse. They're crossing the grade crossing. The signals are Walther signals, although we've modified the control circuit with an Arduino circuit with photoresistors. I like using that because I can adjust them for the ambient lighting conditions, and it's a simple circuit. So there you can see the roll-up door. These are actually a European product, the roll-up doors. It's made by a company called Weissman. They're semi-famous for making HO scale. Everything they make is pretty much like signals or animated electronics for HO modeling. There's the other door going up and the one door closing. They work they're very reliable, surprisingly, and they're actually like true roll-up doors. They actually roll around a spindle with a small like kind of pager motor in it. Good, nice control system. They are DCC ready. You can connect them to your DCC system and control them like an accessory. We did not do that. We made a separate control system for them just because you're not really in freemo. You're not really supposed to run accessories off the DCC bus. Sort of a no-no. I'm sure some groups do it, but our group does not. So we're still working some of the bugs out. The doors sit too high, so since this was filmed, we've added, I think, a section to the bottom to make the doors not have that big open gap on the bottom. And the warehouse is a work in progress too. It's by no means finished. We're adding lighting. We're going to add some stuff to the roof, and then some other details, gutters, things like that, downspouts, so on and so forth. Electrical devices, what have you. It's hard to find those doors, though, in America, or kind of anywhere, so they're a little tricky to find. I actually have 3, and I use 2 on this structure, so they're not cheap either. So my son and me work together, and I guess unfortunately or fortunately, we spend a lot of time talking about trains and HO modeling and so forth. So we end up coming up with the idea between the October show and the February show of building a return loop. Trouble is, my workshop wasn't finished being built yet, so I had to wrap up my workshop, and this photo is just after January. We started building the loop for the show that was at the end of the month or the very beginning of February. It's a 5 curve sections and 1 like kind of keystone section. and it's built out of like 3/16 cheap underlayment plywood. And but unfortunately, I designed it, and it's a tab and slot type construction. It's not a torsion box, but that's another argument for another time. I've been in carpentry for years, woodworking, so it's technically not a torsion box. But here you can see it's on the CNC. Again, not a typical tool that most model railroaders would have, but I'm a professional woodworker, so I do have one. And you can see the tab and slot, cut out, very efficiently laid out on a sheet of plywood. I forget how many sheets of plywood it was to do the whole curve. I don't know, maybe 6, something like that. I forget. There you go. There's gluing it up, just regular wood glue and 23 gauge pins to hold it together while the glue's drying, but the glue does most of the work. It's cut out for passing wires through ahead of time. There you can see it's one of the bananas. That's one of the outer curves. There's 3 of them. There's 2 inner curves. These are the tightest radius. The inner curves are less gradual. You can see the CAD drawing of it or what have you for the planning for our plan. I got Dave who does the planning for our group of the layout. You can see the legs are just simple EMT 1-inch electrical conduits just set into a block and then a hole in the bottom. Simple but effective. I use cabinet feet for it. These are designed for cabinetry. They have a 2-inch adjustment on them and they're super cheap. And they fit in an electrical tube. There you can see we set it up in the shop barely and fit it together. Then we disassembled it, getting ready. It's all labeled. Anderson power poles between it all. Tam Valley reversing circuits, and we're getting ready to go to the show. Like I said, I think it was early February. It was our next show at Timonium, Maryland, with the Great Scale Train Show. And this is a good example of the flexibility of freemo. We have these poles that we have to deal with in our allotted space, and when we started setting up the layout at the other end, we thought that we'd be clear of the pole, but when we got close to it, it was going to have a conflict with the loop. So we were able to flip-flop a few other modules to change the curvature of the layout and got it spaced right underneath it. Here's some pictures from the show, or right around it, I'm sorry. Just some shots, miscellaneous shots. There you can see some of those lumber packs I was working on the last show. Too much grass for South Philadelphia, but as I said, that's going to change. We do have some of the graffiti and everything we're working on. That was a container train I built for the show. I got some cheap Walthers, the old Walthers container double stacks or well cars for I forget, like $20 to $30. A lot of them. Just had to build them and put all the wheels on and that kind of thing. So there you can see our. So here we're between the February show and the April show, and of course we start talking again. Say, wouldn't it be nice if we had a second return loop? It's already programmed. The design work's already done. All we have to do is throw a couple pieces of wood in the CNC and then, do all the electronics and 30 pieces of flex track and blah, 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 blah. These things aren't cheap either, even though the plywood's pretty cheap and everything, but all the track, electronics, blah, 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 blah. You're in about $1,000 on one of these return loops doing all the work yourself. So here we go again, building a second return loop so we can bounce back and forth and do continuous running, which kind of is against the principle of freemo in a way, I think. Maybe not. But we don't have a lot of yards on the layout, so it's a good idea. This is the, I don't know if the picture's picking it up. I think it's called Revolution Ply that we use. It's an underlayment. It's not Luan. It's some kind of sustainable. But I like buying it. It's a little bit more than Luan plywood, but it's dimensionally consistent, which is important when you're doing this type of work. There's 3 sections, 2 of the inner curves, 1 of the outer curve on the workbench, just all glued up and so forth. There's an entire return loop. The two inner loops, you can see they're much gradual radius, which is good because you're transitioning. The three outer loops, and then the keystone module. Everything clamps together with just some big bolts and washers. Okay, so we're in the shop now. You can see us building the second return loop, which we did a better job than the first one, as you usually do. But don't if you're thinking about building one of these, it's a lot of track, it's a lot of electrical, plugs between each section. It's not a simple project. So then things even get stupider. And the week before the show in April, we say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a Y? So we went to the drawing board and designed a Y module. So there we go. We're building a Y. It's 3 sections. They fit together very nicely. But again, a shit ton of electronics and wires, and you need pass-through wires with a Y, and you need 3 of everything on a Y. It's so many freaking Anderson power poles. My head was about to explode. Okay, so you can see the general layout for the 3-section Y here. On paper, it looked like it was going to work, but in reality, it would have worked on the paper drawing, but the paper kind of shows like Y switches instead of like left or right hand. And I was using number 8 left and right hands, what I had on hand. So after this was designed and after it was all cut, we realized we had to add some length to each piece, unfortunately. Different construction method this time, a little bit. We have stringers, try to keep it as open as possible, not as light as the curves, but a little different construction method. Every one of our modules we built differently, just kind of experimenting. Haven't really settled on one we like better than the other. Just kind of fun to change it up and experiment with new things. But the main reason for the stringers also is to support the tracks, because I thought that the light plywood with the wide spans when you get to the one end of the Y would have a problem of sag or something. So this way those stringers fall right under the tracks and kind of support the tracks. There's some more pictures of the sections under construction. The webbing on the back, again, not a the webbing's not, so here you can see we had to add these little 8-inch or whatever blocks onto the end just to get some space. And I was saying just before that the webbing isn't as complicated as it looks. It's pretty easy in the program to do that, and I always figured might as well make it look kind of nice. And it's not really. It's a couple, I don't know, 15 seconds of work or something to round the corners off and to kind of create the offsets and everything. Very easy. So now you can see the Jimmy's assembling the sections together. Again, just bolts with big fender washers holding everything together. We found that works better than C-clamps, and especially since the track is we don't have fitter rails between the sections on these. You can see the web looks kind of nice. Kind of bummed about those little extensions on the end because it kind of ruined my whole clean design. But you got to do what you got to do to get it to work. We're setting it upside down so we can work on all the wiring, which was very extensive in this one. Again, I think I mentioned that we have you have 3 of everything. So you have 3, I forget what the Anderson power pole blocks between the sections is just unbelievable, because with the one section has to be a reversing section to get it to work. It's just a lot of wiring, more than I think on the return loops, believe it or not. So you can see a section standing up by the workbench, and here's going to be the webbing, and you can see the bolts holding the sections together nice and snug. At the show, we have a Milwaukee cordless ratchet that makes short work of bolting all these loops and Ys together, and doesn't take long to set up at all. We can set up all our modules in that, I'd say probably in 2 hours, maybe 3 tops. When I posted this on YouTube in one of the freemo groups, it's funny, I got more questions about my shop than the modules, I think. I built some carrying pieces to they're wood dowels and just plates on the end that are held together by ratchet straps, so I could make it easy to store and between shows and keep everything lined up and safe and protected on the ends, so especially that track that goes right flush to the edge. Got to represent, so I laser cut a stencil for Capital Freemo and tagged all our modules, or all the plates that carrying plates for the modules, I guess is whatever you would call that. So they're all ready to go. You can see the A, B, whatever set with numbered, lettered sections. There's our trailer that we carry everything in. It's a dedicated freemo trailer now. We just leave all the loops and Ys in there between shows. And then my son, the other sections serve as my son's home layout, so they come out and go down in his basement and are set up, and there is home layout between shows. So the return loop carrying pieces do actually both loops. So you can see you got the 4 inner circles for inner curves for 2 loops, and then the 6 outer curves for the 2 loops, and then the 2 keystone sections are just transported separately. And you'll see them right there on the floor in the foreground. We can roll around in a cart, but we have handles on it. It's easy for 2 people to carry. Now we're set up at the show. I think that's the first return loop that we built in the foreground. You can see Yaren's 56-foot long, I think it's 56-foot long, Reading bridge on the to the right of that. And then behind the bridge in the distance, you can see the second return loop. And then in the center, the whole core of everything, the Y was located. And here's the Y. You can see it's kind of a gathering point. Now we have dual control turnouts, but only dual control for the for each section. You really need 3-way control, because there's going to be that one turnout that you can't reach from the side of the Y you're standing on, and it's a pretty big layout to have to walk around. But with the show like this, there's always somebody standing there that can throw a switch for you. So it worked out okay, and I haven't explored how you'd wire a 3-way, but 3-way tortoise, but I'm sure it's just another double pole switch will do the job. So there's now we're running, and I'm going to leave you with the video. Jimmy's operating the Ready Northern Fast Freight through the layout here, through the Y. Just leave you with the next Timonium show is coming up it's at the State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland, this weekend, which I think will be October 12th or 11th, and we'll be there with all our modules and with setting up at the Capitol Group. So if you're at the show, stop by and say hi, and happy to answer any questions. Take care. Thanks for watching.